Adventure of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman, W4CY Radio. This is the Positively Pipeman segment with our powerful business strategies. And we are back with our resident expert, Michael Barbarita from Next Step CFO. And we're going to talk today about the 10% pricing trap. Uh-oh. What's this trap all about, Michael?
It's a trap. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Dean. And the 10% pricing trap is when people drop their price 10%. So I had a client who was adamant about dropping their price because, unfortunately, they're not selling the transformation. They're selling the transaction, and that's the trap that all business owners get into. When you're selling your product or service, you're going to sell the transformation that takes place and the value that you add to that transformation, not the transaction. Get them off the transaction, get them into the transformation. And so he wasn't doing that, of course. And so he's just focused on price and price competition. So I told him, and this is what happens with most business owners, and it depends upon your gross profit margin. But in this particular case, I said, if you're going to drop your price 10% like you're proposing, it's going to require 40% more volume. Do you think you could do that? Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, they couldn't do that. And so the 10%, it's going to require 40% more volume in order to obtain the same gross profit dollars they were doing at the higher price. So so what happened? Well, they did more volume. It wasn't 40% more, but they did more volume. So they had more customer complaints, more aggravation, more work, more inefficiency, more utilization of staff that was working at a lower price. And it didn't work at all. And that's the thing that business owners have to keep in mind, is that price increases. If you have a 10% price increase, you don't need 10% more volume. You need, in all likelihood, depending on the numbers, 40% more volume. And when I say depending on the numbers, it depends upon your gross profit margin. If your gross profit margin is higher, you don't have to make up as much volume. If it's lower, most business owners are in the 40 to 50% range, and that's of gross profit. And so that's why I say, your volume, you have to increase 40%.
I love what you're saying here too, because it's kind of a peeve of mine that people sit there and say, oh, I didn't have to take algebra and I'm never going to use algebra in my life. And that's why they don't recognize stuff like this. Or here's a funny, you'll recognize this from retail. When I was in retail, we used to have Memorial Day weekend sales. We'll use that since it was recently Memorial Day a couple weeks ago. And basically, we would have a sale that was 50% off plus 10. And every single person thought that meant 60. But no, that's not what it means. You have to do the math. And so I relate that to this because it's so true. People think, doing a 10% price cut is not a big deal. But if you do the math, like you said, it's costing you 40% for that 10% decrease.
Right. And no one considers the cost of more customer complaints, more mistakes made in the field, more aggravation, more output means more people. No one considers that part.
I love that too, because I do consider that part. Okay. The fact is that I'd rather have a few big clients than a bunch of little clients in certain respects. Other respects, not necessarily, but those respects you're talking about, it is true. Because here's the thing too, you do this 10% price cut. This is what I've learned in business all my life, is that those new customers you get that you didn't get before the price cut, they're the ones that are going to call you 10 million times, email you 10 million times, have 10 million questions, and, basically they feel for that 10% price cut that they should get 40% worth of extra service.
Right. It's amazing, and that's what the 10% price drop is, because that a business, and even a 5% drop, you still have to make up more volume, and you're still going to have that more activity, more aggravation, more people needed. It's a vicious circle. I strongly recommend no price drops. And
what do you recommend?
I recommend price increases.
There you go.
That's what I normally recommend. It's hard for business owners to get their head around that, especially, the situations where business owners have a real problem with it is they're trying to keep people busy. And so they'll drop whatever it takes just to keep them busy. And usually that's not a good practice over time. Maybe you have to lay off, maybe you have to put people on temporary leave, and have them collect unemployment. There's strategies around that I've used with clients. I call it retention bonuses, where if people come back after a leave, they get a bonus if they work there 6 months or more. So there's all types of different ways to skin the cat on that. Business owners go right for the drop of the price, and it's just not the right thing.
Yeah, and I gotta say that there's in like the restaurant or service industry, they do that quite often in certain areas. Like I'm from the Jersey Shore, where basically after Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend, it's like insanity, and the rest of the year it's a ghost town. And so many of the businesses, especially in the service industry, restaurants or things like that, close down during the off season instead of keeping the doors open to really get no business. Or there's other examples I've seen of restaurants that, they find out that maybe lunchtime is not their good time. So they'll close down for several hours during that time. Because even the fact of, you think about it, if you have a restaurant as an example, the cost of just turning the lights on all that time
absolutely
could be significantly damaging to the business.
Right. No, absolutely. When I was in the ski business, we closed in the off season, totally closed, shut them down. And it was really effective because we specialized in ski. We didn't specialize in selling aqualungs or whatever the counter seasonal product would be, so it definitely can pay off to do that. No question.
So how do people reach out to you and get more information, find out more strategies that can benefit their business with your powerful business strategies?
Well, they could do a couple things, Dean. They go to my website, nextstepcfo.net. In the right-hand corner is a link to a diagnostic. The diagnostic takes 3 to 5 minutes. You just answer a few questions, and it comes up with 3 business strategies that your competition isn't doing, along with the financial impact that those strategies would have if they were implemented, along with an explanation of the strategy and how to go about implementing it. That's totally free. You could also go to my website and hit the contact page, fill out the contact form, and just put diagnostic, and I'd send it to you immediately. But it is right there on the site as well. So they could contact me in any of those ways. And once they do the diagnostic, that's a form of contacting me because I know that they did it.
There you go. Well, once again, you're a wealth of information, and this advice today should make people money for sure and save them money at the same time.
Absolutely.
So thanks once again for giving us some powerful business strategies here on the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Nice to have me, Dean.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.